level up a few thousand degrees with the Lavahot podcast and host Joseph Connell Jr. You'll hear from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things, from tech startup CEOs and marketing professionals to authors, investors, and sales trainers. This show will be packed with information to help you level up in life or business, taking you from on fire up to Lavahot. Get ready to burn this down.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lavahot podcast. I'm your host, Joe Connell, and with me I've got special guest Nathan Bourne of MyCORE. This is an episode I'm really looking forward to. Nathan is a longtime friend, longtime entrepreneur. Here in episode 2, you've probably seen episode 1 where I explained that the whole premise of this show is to bring on bright, inspiring entrepreneurs, salesmen, creators, what have you. And Nathan definitely fits the bill. And I wanted to have him on to share his entrepreneurial journey and share with us his company, his vision of 2022, so on and so forth. Nathan, welcome to the show, and I'm glad to have you.
Right on. Good to be here. Good to see you, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Nathan, squeaky door.
Is that an effect? That sounded good.
Yeah, I have buttons for that. Yep. So, Nathan, as I mentioned, longtime friend. We've known each other officially as friends for about 10 to 12 years, somewhere in that ballpark.
If you think back to your senior year of high school, my freshman year, dude, that's almost 20 years ago.
I know.
It's 2002. It would have been fall of 2002.
I know. I haven't aged a bit. Yeah.
Me either.
Yep. A little bit of gray in the beard. But yeah, so one of the main reasons why I want to have you on is that I know, over those 20 years, if you will, you've been a full-time entrepreneur. You have had a couple of different journeys along that way, but you've been full-time at taking a stab at entrepreneurship, and I just want to dive into that. I want to understand the pathway and let the listeners understand that pathway and where you were and what got you here. But for you, the entrepreneurial run, if you will, did that start directly out of high school, or walk me through where that started for you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. Yeah. Formally, kind of officially, I would say right after high school. So summer going into my freshman year of college is when I founded my first company. But I did things prior to that that were, I would call, entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's an important distinction too, because there is a difference between being entrepreneurial and being an entrepreneur. And I think both are okay. There's no like badge of honor that you get for being an entrepreneur, but it can be quite different. I think there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of ventures, a lot of companies that you can get an entrepreneurial experience. You can kind of cut your teeth in that. Yep. But then going full blown into entrepreneurship, it's sort of a horse of another color. Yeah. So I've kind of experienced all of it in different seasons of life. But yeah, I started really on a more traditional path, which would be school and sports, academics and athletics. Yeah. And you know a lot of my kind of upbringing and story. I'm from a big family. I'm the fourth of 9 children, which is pretty unique in this century. So I kind of thought my ticket to success and comfort and kind of the lifestyle I wanted to live would be through school and sports, as we're told. Mm-hmm. And I was a good boy. I got great grades and worked really hard, and wrestling specifically. Mm-hmm. And that afforded me an opportunity to wrestle at the University of Pennsylvania. So I found myself at 17, 18 years old, Ivy League student, Division I athlete, but I wanted to create. And I think if you have creative in you, that can be tough when you start to do more linear things. Right. So we can talk more about that, but that's a little bit just the short version of it. So the summer of my having graduated high school, going into my freshman year of college, I just had this idea for a clothing company, and was like, I'm gonna start this company. And my best friend, Ryan Shank is his name, good buddy. We started
another entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, he's a rock star, man. You should have him on your show if you haven't reached out to him.
Yeah, love to.
Yeah, totally. He's done it. He's built, exited. I mean, he's done the whole thing. But yeah, so we start this company together at 17 and 18 years old, and we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we learned a lot in those 3 years, and we created kind of a little cult following. We had like a little, early adopter kind of raving fan, and then that parlayed into a lot of other things. So
yeah. So you started that company, and that's as you're approaching going to Penn on scholarship?
Yep.
Okay. And that was for wrestling. And then when you get to Penn, graduate, how long were you there?
Yeah, I was actually there for 4 calendar years. And it's funny because it kind of goes back to what I was touching on earlier. The whole system's kind of crazy, right? They ask a 17, 18-year-old kid, what do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit early for us to answer that. So I thought I wanted to go to law school, and I could have gone into Wharton, the business school there, but just figured I'd go to the College of Arts and Sciences and get a degree in philosophy and go on to law school. And I took my first pre-law class, and I was like, hell no. This is so much reading. I'm not interested in any of this. Yeah. So I stayed at Penn while building the clothing company for 3 years. Then I got introduced to another company, and this was my introduction into the industry of network marketing. I never heard of it, didn't even know it was a thing. Yeah. And on my summer break, which would have been 2009, I just did really well. I made like $35,000 my first few months, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And growing up the way I grew up, poor kid with a huge family, that was like gangster money. I mean, that was Donald Trump money. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna keep doing this, and I'm gonna put some financial security in my life, because that just hadn't existed. And this is kind of a touchy topic to discuss, but I'll just say it this way: my peers that I were going to school with at Penn, they were not struggling through the same things that I was. Things like a winter coat, a laptop, extra long sheets, stuff that your parents put on the credit card and kind of equip you with. My parents had a bunch of kids still at home and just weren't in a position to do that, right? Yeah. And going to college was one thing, but I kind of hit it so hard, I think. It was almost like I was spring-loaded because of my drive, that I ended up kind of going off the chart, kind of an outlier of sorts in wrestling and in school. And I don't think my parents were ready to keep up with that. And honestly, with this much hindsight, I don't even know that it was fair that they would have. They didn't tell me to do that or pressure me to do that. I kind of just went out on my own and made that happen. But it became real pretty quickly when I didn't have the resources that I needed. Yep. So I thought, okay, this is a great way to make money in the summer. But then that summer turned to fall. And it just got to a point where very practically, it just wasn't making sense for me to continue to pursue my degree when I was earning income, learning these life skills, and kind of adulting. At that time I was about 20. Yep. So I stepped away from Penn. I'm an Ivy League dropout. I'm still on a break from them. I took a break. Still on that break. But so that was that. And then that would have been 2009. And then for 7 straight years, I built with that company. And that ultimately led to the company that I'm now the founder and CEO of MyCORE. Sure,
absolutely. So for me, because we met...
Yeah, it's cool because you have a story within my story, right?
Yeah, so we met right around, I guess that would have been 2010.
10, probably,
somewhere in that ballpark.
I think I would have, I just left Penn. I was no longer wrestling, and I was fully focused on that company.
Yeah. One thing that I see with every business owner, especially right now in 2021, I hate that I just did that. I just dated the episode, if you will, but recruiting it's a challenge for everybody. I've seen it in a number of different industries of clients that I work with where just recruiting has been really tough. You have a unique spot where you have built large organizations,
right.
In record time, and then had large organizations that could duplicate success as well. When you were in like the height of building your team and your organization, roughly how many, distributors or I'm not sure, associates, I guess it would be.
Yeah, a little over 2,500.
Yeah, I mean
nationally.
That's massive. To be able to lead an organization on a national scale, all with the same vision or mission, if you will. Right. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
But yeah, so we met roughly 2010, 2011, somewhere in there.
Or I guess you could say we re-met because
yep.
we knew each other from high school, but
yep.
we weren't friends then per se, but we were buds.
In class, I mean, we were, age-wise, we were a little bit off for some odd reason.
Why were we in the same class?
I came down to the area from Baltimore, and I went to, in Baltimore, there's all-boys school called Mount St. Joe.
Oh, yeah, great wrestling school.
Yep, I went there. I actually went there to play football. The problem was when you're 4'9" and you weigh 100 pounds, you're not going to make the football team.
Were you 4'9"?
Oh, I was. Going into my 9th grade year, yeah, I was scrawny.
Wow, man.
A cool story. So while I was going there, there was a gentleman there in my same grade. His name was Keon Lattimore. He was Ray Lewis's little brother.
Dang.
And this was during the time where Ray Lewis was going, through some shit. But he was also trying out for the football team, just to give you some perspective of,
and he's 4'10".
Yeah, just a little bit bigger. Yeah, so I had no chance, but I did have an aunt that she was a workhorse. I lived with my aunt in those days, and she worked her ass off to put me through private school. So
So then when you came to Decatur, I guess you just hadn't taken gym class yet?
So it was weird. So like. I did take gym class my 9th grade year. It was weird. It was like something with like my credits.
Okay.
So they were just like, hey, you got to go sit in this room for, a period all year long.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'll do that.
Well, it's funny just to think how paths cross,
Yep.
I'm sure people listening can think of the moments in their life, those little butterfly effects, because in that moment, it's pretty insignificant, right? And maybe even in the next one, it's insignificant. But by like the 7th, you start to see a pattern, right? You start to see sort of this weaving pattern. And I think you and our lives have intertwined in that way. Yeah. So, okay, cool. So I didn't mean to digress there. Because I remember this. This is a great little nugget, I think, in here. Because when we reconnected in 2010, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is when you were working essentially for the city, right?
Not the city. Okay. It was a Miss Utility company. It was a subcontractor for companies like Verizon, Comcast, here locally, Delmarva Power. And if the city's about to drill a hole in the ground or somebody's going to build a deck, they would call Miss Utility. Okay. And I worked for a company called Utiliquest at the time.
I'm telling you today, this morning, in preparing my thoughts to do this podcast with you, I saw a guy standing outside of a Utiliquest truck with boots on, spray painting lines. And I was like, the last time I saw somebody, I mean, I'm sure I've seen it, but my Raz filter hadn't picked it up, was Joe Connell when we met at Panera, which was that same time, right?
Yep.
And this is something that highlights you. I know you're great at edifying and highlighting others, but I have to key in on this because I think you've always been built for success, Joe, and a lot of people think that or say that, but then they don't really do anything about it. They just sort of settle into their life, which there's nothing wrong with, right? I mean, you can live a wonderful life working at Utiliquest. I'm sure great coworkers and great families, but the only, I think, discrepancy is if you can't reconcile internally with that feeling.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing because I never want to offend people.
Yeah,
I get what I'm saying?
The way I've always looked at that is, you can make adjustments in your life to go after success. But if you don't want to, like if you're happy in your current state, if you're happy with whatever it is that you have at that moment, if you have a beautiful house, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, and you don't have a specific, burning in your stomach to go for more, and you got to tread lightly in that word because they might have already achieved their more.
Right.
For many people,
Right.
they've surpassed the more.
Right.
But I think Gary Vee even kind of says it that way. But if you've got like this in your head or in your heart or your soul,
right.
like I can do more, I want to do more, this active pursuit of a better version or a better income or whatever it is, then you got to try to sharpen the axe. You've got to try to seek out the right type of mentorship and so
and
on
I think
so
at
forth.
that moment, I don't. You'd have to tell me, but there had been some seeds planted. You had been exploring something. The apple cart had been upset in a way that the timing was there. I think you weren't okay with where you were, and you saw a different vision for your life, and I just happened to kind of be inserted at that moment.
Yeah. So really the angst of wanting to be a business owner had kind of lived dormantly in me.
Okay.
So growing up, in Pasadena, just outside of Baltimore,
Right.
I had two friends specifically that, they were my best friends in the world. They had great families. And if you've ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, where he talks about, his family, his father gave
Right.
him, certain principles, but then his friend's family gave like that financial like vision,
Right.
if you will, and the principles. I had two friends like that.
Oh wow. Two rich dad friends.
Yeah,
essentially.
so both of my friends, one's Ronnie and one's Robbie, both of their parents were successful.
Okay.
They lived in Gambrills, Maryland. Both of them did. Beautiful houses. Ronnie lived kind of like a generational wealth. His grandfather had like this huge farm.
So that was your exposure to it.
It was. So my aunt lived in a nice home, and at the time I was living with her. And as I mentioned, she was a workhorse. I remember when I moved in with her, I lived with her for about 4 years or so, from age 10 to like 14, 15.
Cool.
And when I was living with her, she would work her ass off. I remember she would work during the day, and then we would commute to, I think it was Baltimore. She was going to school. So she's raising me, she's raising my cousin, and she's working and, getting us through school as a single mother, single aunt mother.
Right, yeah. That's
yeah,
cool.
and going to school at the same time. So, I like to say for, my aunt that, she probably put some heavy burden on any female in my life, because I always look at really just any individual that you can always do more.
Right.
I don't allow for many excuses when it comes to what can be done.
Right.
And I think it's because of her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think I don't want to anticipate your question, but
Sure.
I think what you were starting to key in on was this sort of forte that I've had of recruitment.
Yep.
And a lot of the kind of nuggets within the art and science of recruiting we just discussed, because it's really about finding the gold within people, the flame, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And at first it tends to just be a flicker, but it requires oxygen. It requires another person to sort of flame that, or fuel that flame and fan that flame for it to ever be Lavahot, right? For it to ever be like a true burning desire. Yeah. And I can remember that interaction with you at Panera, because I was maybe a little bit further along as far as not working, for a company or kind of being out on my own, but I can remember that conversation pretty vividly.
No, it's funny because that day that we met, re-met, if you will, I was there trying to recruit you. And it's funny because you were like, yeah, that's good. Like you weren't even you didn't try to trash what I was talking about. You didn't try to belittle me for, having a different opportunity. You were like, but what if you did this instead? and I was like, yeah, that seems like the way to go. So,
yes.
It was funny. Another cool story as it relates to Panera Bread, and it kind of hits on what we were talking about. But I remember shortly after that, we met at Panera Bread, and this is a principle that I have basically had as my structure for 10 years, really. Oh, really? One of them, I have several different things that I like to rely on as principles that you need to operate on. Right. But this was one of them. And you had explained to me that, in order to be valuable in the marketplace, you have to bring value to the marketplace. And as we were sitting in Panera Bread, I don't know if you remember this, but you said, Joe, look at the guy over there. He's stocking the bread. He was like, I'm willing to bet that is a good individual. I'm willing to bet that he's loved by his family, a good person in the eyes of the Lord, but he's not bringing much value to the marketplace. Not a lot of value being the guy that stocks the bread.
Right.
But think about the guy that started Panera Bread. He created a tremendous amount of value. He created an atmosphere for business individuals to be able to meet and take clients to lunch. He created a place where families can gather and have a good meal. That's value. That's why that CEO will make millions while the guy stocking the bread will make, whatever they're making. Right. So, again, the key point there is it wasn't you were trying to put down the guy stocking bread. It was just a principle for me to operate from. That's what I took from it was, wow, if you want to be valuable in the marketplace, you need to bring value to the marketplace. And
that's cool. So that stuck with you.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things.
And look how you've flourished since then and built, and I think you've manifested that, right? You're bringing value, this very moment, right? You're bringing value to me and to the people in my network and world. So that's cool. Yeah, that's a philosophy and a principle I too have lived by. That's why I was sharing it that day. But yeah. I think that those moments matter so much because iron sharpens iron, and it's not. I didn't make any of this stuff up, right? I just started subscribing to it and applying it and trying to really live it and breathe it. But yeah, that's an interesting point, and I think it kind of goes back to who you are, right? If you're the person that envisions solving this big problem and building the systems and the processes and the people and kind of all that is necessary to scale that,
yep.
Then you can. And if you're not thinking that way because something else is occupying your mind, that's okay too. It just at least take inventory of it, right? Like if the guy stocking the bread goes home and plays Xbox all night, like there's nothing wrong, like illegal or unethical with that. It's just, is that ultimately going to lead him to where he wants to be and attract the things that he wants? So it's cool that you've built the last 10 years what you've built. And I remember it because you were painting freaking lines.
No, I remember once we once I decided to join you in the venture.
Yeah.
We would have opportunity meetings, and I would show up in that truck.
Wow.
With my boots and pants covered in spray paint, and I would have my suit in my truck that more than likely I bought from Goodwill.
Right.
Like, there's a high probability.
That's highly likely.
And in those days, I didn't even understand what the R and the L and all that stood for. So it was random picks. Right. It was just whatever I thought would look good enough to get me by. And I'd sit front row and just, absorb the information that I've heard 100 times.
Right.
With the same enthusiasm because, I was kind of bought in. During that time, when I was at UtiliQuest, I started picking up what books I should be reading, what I should be listening to. Because my first like 6 months at that company, I would drive around listening to sports radio. I'd listen to, Colin Cowherd and Dan Patrick. And as a Ravens fan, growing up outside of Baltimore, you got to be a Ravens fan.
Right.
And I would, just listen. It was like in my head, I thought if I knew how many tackles Ray Lewis had, it would somehow be impactful of my life.
Right.
But yeah, it wasn't, apparently. So I, shortly after we linked up, I started hearing, Think and Grow Rich, Tony Robbins. I started hearing, different authors. One really big one for me was Jeff Olson, and I would just drive around in that truck all day long. Awesome. It was Drive Time University. I'd listen to, the Slight Edge was a big one for me. Just that very simple concept. It's easy to do. It's also easy not to do.
Right.
It's little decisions that compound over time.
I think it's just cool kind of envisioning you driving in that truck because...
Well, I got a cooler part.
I want to land
the plane on that.
Yeah. I want to give you that punchline. Before I do, just a thought I had as you were sharing, specifically the driving around, because I think people just don't commit to the process. Mm-hmm. They don't really have the patience and the delaying of gratification and really that just marination that's necessary. Because if you had a job that maybe was a little sexier, right? Like maybe you were in real estate or something, or you were working in stock market or something, where you were just go, and you were making good money, but not you didn't have freedom yet, right? You didn't have where it was like, okay, this is mine, I really built this.
Yep.
You may not have had the opportunity to learn all of that, and get that mentorship through those audios.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately what you're talking about is I might not have been open to being coachable.
Right.
By an individual that was 3 years younger than me.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that's something that, to this day, I'm still coachable. And to the effect that, for any listener that's familiar with Grant Cardone, like I commit money and invest to learn.
You put your money where your mouth is. I'm impressed when I see you doing that stuff.
Yeah,
like,
geez. I feel like they know something I don't know.
They do, right?
Yeah. And he definitely does. Yeah. I've been in marketing 10 years, and this dude is like a marketing powerhouse.
Right.
I'd be doing me and my clients a disservice not to invest in what he knows. So what was interesting in those days of riding around UtiliQuest, Drive Time University, right. I fell in love with this idea of, I didn't want to be a life coach, but at the time I was like, I want to be a corporate life coach. That's it. That's what I want to do. Because I heard Jim Rohn talking about how organizations would call him. I was like, I want to be a corporate life coach. I didn't realize it until about 3 years into my career that I was a consultant, and you actually said to me, you were like, so you're that thing now. Oh, you were like, you were that corporate life coach, and the real word was consultant.
Yeah,
I didn't know what the
prestige worldwide.
That's the interesting thing. I think, maybe not the secret, but like how you, what you think about, you attract. I became what I had thought about in that truck. And what I kept saying, and it was the wrong title. It didn't matter what the title was.
Right, of course.
What mattered was the intentions.
Yeah.
The intentions were, I want to go into businesses and I want to help them.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a 10-year-long career.
So cool, man.
500 clients that I've worked
for
with.
Whatever it's worth, I'm super proud of you, man. I mean, it sounds weird to even say those words, but
sure. It's
really neat to see your journey continue to unfold. And I think what you just touched on there is a nugget. Thoughts don't become things. Plenty of people think about stuff. Yeah. Feelings become things because your feelings, that emotion, that core part of you is what will give you the fuel to actually do the tangible things that have to be done. Build the network, learn the skill, skip the sleep, travel the distance.
Yeah.
And it's the slight edge. I mean, it really is just little things compounded over time. That's how I became a great wrestler. I was not naturally the best athlete. I just mastered the fundamentals, and I just drilled it over and over and over and over and over again to the point where my opponents would, they knew it was coming. I could pretty much just say, I will be hitting a double leg takedown now, like just boom. And I think that
ready to go night.
right. I think that consistency and that persistency with a good attitude over an extended period of time, right, is what the compound effect is. It is the slight edge, and it works in both directions. So that's exciting, man. I love sharing this moment with you because we just have this kind of history now that's cool. So sorry, you keep inspiring a different thought.
So I want to bring it into where you are now. So I know, I want to say it was around 2018. Mm-hmm. You're in an apartment in Annapolis. I was kind of happy because you moved to Florida for a while, so I hadn't seen you. You moved back, and I come over to Annapolis to meet with you, and you had briefly told me like, hey, I've got something new that I'm working on, and we meet, and you start outlining for me this company, MyCORE. Yeah. So I want you to touch on where it was then, and then how it's transitioned and pivoted, if you will, right now as we're approaching 2022.
For sure, I can give you a little state of the union, if you will.
Yeah.
On both the personal and the business side, because the other part, as entrepreneurs and business leaders, is that we have our lives, amidst all of this. We're not machines, we're not robots, and in that is children, marriage, and divorce, and separation, and financial struggle, and health, and all the other aspects of life. So I won't dwell on that too much, but at that time, I was divorced, a single dad, with two young children, and just kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life with that as my reality. And what a good time to start a business in the middle of all of that. It's like, I'm broke.
If you're going through hell, you might as well just throw a little gas on it and get your way through it.
Like that country song, right? Keep on going. The devil might not know you're even here. So it could be the wrestler in me. It's probably the big family and the tough upbringing, but I just said, you know what, I'm doing it. No, I'm going to build this thing. And I did, and it took a few different iterations and a few different kind of calibrations, but to fast forward now, as we literally round out the year and go into a new year, I'm moving to Florida tomorrow with the mother of my two daughters. We've had another child since and are back together as a family, which is great. Yep. She is no longer working, which she's absolutely paid her dues. She's nannied, bartended, waitressed, done everything she had to do to kind of keep the lights on, while I built my company, and built myself, really, right? Yeah. So that's the most exciting part on the personal and family side. From the business side, it's going great. We're completely debt free. I bootstrapped the entire thing, which was pretty nutty. And it was because of the company that I recruited you in. Right? I got to give credit where credit's due. That company, Legal Shield, those years of paying my dues, what I learned, the skills I developed, the mindset, even more than the skill set, became an asset. Right? That's what an asset is. I'm going to circle
back on that.
Okay. Yeah,
keep going.
There's some gold and then there are hills right there, because I worked on my mindset, I worked on my skill set, and I built an asset, right? Yep. Mindset plus skill set plus tool set equals asset. But nonetheless, I was able to leverage that asset to survive, right? I wasn't living the dream, but I was paying child support, I was paying the food I needed, I just was getting by. To keep the lights on a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer. So that allowed for MyCORE to exist. And now today we have 17 employees. We serve all 50 states. We're completely cloud-based, fully remote. Other than my business card, we're paperless company. Yeah. And that came out of an intention prior to COVID. It wasn't a reaction to COVID. Quite the opposite. I feel that businesses need to be agile, they need to be mobile, that it needs to exist in the palm of the hand. The world of work has changed. And before COVID, we had to kind of preach that and try to compel businesses to get with that. Now it's pretty self-evident that they need to modernize payroll and benefits and HR, which is the space that we occupy. So that's kind of a quick State of the Union.
So the one thing that I wanted to add in there is, in my days when I was with Legal Shield, for a year or two, and I guess I'm still technically an active associate because I've kept a membership, which, by the way, if you've ever looked at that Legal Shield membership and you decided not to sign up for it, I would strongly encourage it. Strictly, it saved me tens of thousands of dollars. There's periodic incidences that just come up, and it's just convenient.
You know what? Let me touch on something real quick. The reason I recruited you that day, and you didn't recruit me, was because of what you just said. I believed more in Legal Shield than you believed in whatever you were telling me about. Sell or be sold, right?
It was something.
Whatever it was, and it didn't matter the dollar amount. It never does. Nowadays
I think it was something to do with energy.
I think it was. Yeah, it was. It was
power or something.
Yes, it was the deregulation of power. I think at that time. That was like
North American something.
North American people helping people for power.
Ultimately that in the good companies, that's what it's all about. It's
because if you don't believe truly in the product side of it, the service side of it, you'll just exhaust. It takes too much work. It's too much energy. Money is good, right? It helps. It's certainly important, but it doesn't evoke the deep energy, and the deep work that's needed to really conjure, to really create, to really manifest. So as you shared that, I was thinking, I've seen so many things that come and go, and unless you really believe at its most basic, unsexy level, the value of it, it's highly unlikely that it's going to last very long.
But as I, ended up joining that opportunity, and I made no money.
Right.
I was, so there was a saying that I heard, and, it in that journey, and it was, it's not about what you make, it's about what you become. And I look back at those days where I made, I probably made a couple grand, in my Legal Shield days. But it's shaped an entire career.
Right.
If that makes sense. The principles I learned in that. Now, I'll credit 84 Lumber for beating work ethic into me, because I think that, when I went to work for them out of high school, that was, that's what I needed at that time.
Right.
You go out of high school and you're kind of in that party phase, and I wasn't going to college. I flunked through high school. And 84 Lumber found me at a time where it was like, it's time to get to work.
Right.
And shortly after, my first son was conceived. And it was,
gosh, how old is he now?
He'll be 16 in July.
Crazy.
It happens quick.
Yeah.
Now 4 kids. Ashton will be 13 here soon. Abby just turned 14. Gabriel will be 16, and then I've got a 4-year-old. Just in case you're wondering how to reset it, and get to a position where you've got, for me, Aurora, I love her to death. She's my little firecracker. Awesome. So little redhead, and she's very,
I think that. You said something a moment ago about who you become, and I agree. I've heard it this way before, and it tends to check out, the more I ponder on it, that life isn't so much about becoming anything, but unbecoming all the things that we aren't. so that we can be who we were meant to be in the first place. I saw that, little quote some time ago and really latched on to it. And I think for all of us, I know for me and for you, that just proves to be true, because when I saw you that day at Panera with spray paint on your boots, I didn't say it because I'm not a jerk. Yeah, I'm not a dickhead. A complete asshole.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, like, bro, this is not who you are, man. Yeah. And if it was who you are, then we could have just had coffee and hung out. That's fine. Yeah. But it just wasn't reconciling, right? And I think that's what it really comes down to, is like, I've always viewed myself as the founder and CEO of a mega successful, impactful company.
Yep.
And however long that dominant thought, that dominant feeling has been, I have to reconcile that. Right? I have to reckon with it, and I have to reconcile it. So then I just do all the things you have to do to make that a reality, and it not just be, into the ether. Yeah. So I think that's really it. So then when you set the trajectory, you have to just sort of take a little moment to decide where you're headed, who you're becoming, who you're unbecoming. Like, all those things have to be factored in, because every level has its devil. And the very success that a person may be visualizing might not be factoring in their children. Yeah. That's not success to me, right? I mean, it is if you're measuring it just by this one yardstick of, money or market share or something. But we've got to look at this thing called life far more holistically. Mm-hmm. And that's where linear thinking, singular thinking can be very dangerous, because nowadays with technology, with how accessible everything is, you can meet these metrics rather quickly in an inflated way. Yeah. And it won't have the same reward. And part of not raising capital was factored into that, because I was like, I want to build this thing so that the only money that's coming into the company is from paying customers. Yeah. People that love this, love us, want more of it, and are willing to pay in perpetuity for it. And we'll build, and we did that. And then we had a little infusion of capital through the SBA. It was very little. It made a big difference, no doubt. But I think a lot of people get that money to go create something of value. We had already created value for 3 years, and then just added fuel to that fire. So that's just something, I don't need to go off on a tangent there, but if anyone's listening that's, early stage in a business or is considering, starting a company, like, stay super nimble, be humble, and work your tail off to just jam pack it with value, with as many resources as you currently have. And I would say even fight the temptation of cutting corners and getting people involved that maybe they have one thing like capital, but they don't really have the heart for it, So I think that's an important part of this journey, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I'm curious about the customer journey. Somebody, let's say they hear this podcast or they come across MyCORE. What does that customer journey look like? What are like the main products that would be best suited for any startup company or any company that's currently in business? Yeah. And then what does that customer journey look like?
For sure. So short version, MyCORE is made for Main Street. Our clients are local businesses and nonprofits. We can go up to 500 employees. Mm-hmm. The great majority of our clients are under 100, and really under 50 for that matter. So it's Main Street, just like here in Salisbury. Yeah. And what we recognized the market really needed was a single point of contact to impact the employee experience by way of payroll, benefits, and HR. Mm-hmm. Now, payroll in and of itself, I mean, it's not like, I don't know if you have a
I don't.
effect you can. It's not very sexy, so you can try to jazz it up, but it's payroll. Yeah. However, if you think of it this way, the economy flows through payroll. Yeah. Right? If people aren't getting paid, if people aren't getting a paycheck on Friday, then nothing's happening. Yeah. And as much as we want to automate and integrate and just eliminate human beings from the workflow, that one is a slippery slope. It's a very dangerous thing, and I don't believe it is proper. I don't believe it's right. Not just ethically. I just don't think it's what is really needed. What's really needed is a Sherpa, a guide, somebody that says, hey, I've been down this path enough times. Let me help you avoid what you don't know. Right? This misstep, this mistake. So that was really, as I assessed the space and assessed the industry, I was like, that's the mother load, right? That's the main value. And we loaded that value with what we call a people advisor. It's the single point of contact that the client or subscriber can call, text, email, send a messenger pigeon, a raven, whatever.
Smoke signal.
Yeah, smoke signal, however they so choose. And in doing so, backed by world-class tech, they're really getting the best of both worlds. So they can access in the palm of their hand everything from the offer letter, which would probably be like the first point, the first kind of touch point of our subscription, to the way that they onboard, the way that they learn of their employee benefits, they get their paycheck, their employee handbook, all those things, and so much more.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about the kind of the customer journey, as we call it, the client experience, you've done a lot of speaking as well. You tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, right? So I took that methodology and built it into our client experience. So we have hello at mycore.io, which is like the voice of MyCORE, and it's constantly telling the client what we're going to tell them, and then the people advisor calls them and tells them, and then hello along with the people advisor with like a follow-up email or phone call or just follow up, tells them what they told them. Yeah. And we live and breathe this all day, right? This is what we do. So simple call to actions get lost in the sauce because that business owner has so many other things that they're doing. They're cutting lawns, building houses, baking cookies, creating podcasts, whatever their business is, right? Building marketing, plans. So every business, doesn't matter what you do, has payroll. Yeah. Has or should or will have employee benefits, and HR is just baked into it, right? So that was really the thought process behind it. And what I'm most proud of is our retention. We don't lose clients. I mean, I think our retention now is like 97%. Yeah. I mean, and that even factors in like if a business went out of business or something, right? Not just, of course, nobody leaves because they're unhappy.
Yeah, no, I mean, for a software product, I mean, that's incredible retention.
Yeah, and it's because, thank you, and it's because of that human factor. Yeah. And you would think that to have high touch and consultation and advisory, you have to pay off the chart. Our website, the pricing, it's cheaper than what most people are already paying for. Yeah, which is cool. So,
for anybody that's interested in looking at what MyCORE has to offer, where should they go? Is there a number, website? Where would you recommend?
Yeah. I would suggest going right to our website. It's MyCORE, MyCORE.io, MyCORE.io. You can kind of check it all out there. It's a nice website that keeps it simple, but ultimately it really comes down to seeing a demonstration. So one of our people advisors on our acquisition team, which is kind of the front end, that will learn all about your business, learn about your needs, kind of see what you already have in place. Because ultimately we're kind of in the remodeling business. Most companies already have something in place for payroll, right? They're already paying their people, or they have a payroll service. They've got some type of fragmented Frankenstein version of a benefits package, that kind of thing. We'll assess all of that. We'll demonstrate our tech. We'll walk it through it, and then help kind of place them in the proper plan, and go from there. And then they'll have their dedicated, ongoing people advisor on the experience team for the duration. Yep. But mycore.io would be the best place. You can reach out to me too if you want. I'm moving right now, so if I don't get back to you, just give me a few days. But
Yep, for sure. Nationwide, are you guys recruiting? Are you looking for people currently?
We haven't been currently. Yeah, we built it for scale, which is great. We've got an awesome team. We just had an event live in Minneapolis. We flew out all the employees and just had a great couple days right before the holidays hit. But we're always looking for talent. Like, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't say yes, because we talked earlier, right? As somebody that has really recruited great people into my life, that's my skill. I mean, I just found people. I kind of am a heat-seeking missile for great people.
Well, I think it's also an attraction game. You know, people tend to want to be around people that are successful or, you know, have certain things going for them as well. I think for me, I mean, it definitely kind of resonated with me at that time when I met you. So.
I know we're landing the plane around third base, finishing.
Sure.
I want to touch on one more thing, because I think it says a lot about who you are, Joe, and our relationship.
Sure.
And you're spot on. So, a couple things. People aren't really concerned with where you are. They're concerned and attracted to where you're going.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
Right. I mean, if you look at any of those checkpoints in my life, I mean, even most recently, like, MyCORE's really only turned a corner, and my life's only really, like, come together the way I would be happy with it, you know, for the duration in the last, like, year.
Yeah.
So anything prior to, like, about a year ago, not even really a year, like 2021, right? I would not want to live out the rest of that life. Like, it's just, you know, there's things about my life up to 32 that I'm thankful for, happy for, but until this year, 2021, I would not have died a happy man, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yet I've been blessed to be able to influence and attract and kind of move and shake with people that are way more successful than I am. And people like yourself that have kind of been part of my path and me part of theirs that have gone on to do great things. I'm saying all that to say that I think people get stuck in this idea that they don't have anything yet to offer or to point to as evidence that, look, I'm successful, right? Especially because the people closest to you, like the ones you marry, are going to be the ones that remind you of how short you are, how you're a day late and a buck short all the time, right?
Yeah.
I have this theory that we marry the person that is best at knocking us off our perch or something. Right? You're like, you go back to dating and you're like, why didn't I get with that girl, long term? It's like, well, she was really nice and she was always encouraging. Why not? And it's like, oh, it didn't challenge me enough, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have to be pushed harder or further, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're talking.
No, it's funny because, right around the time when we met, you hear the stories from, in different books, you got to learn sales. And I knew that I wanted to get into sales just because I knew I had to learn that skill.
Right.
And this was at a time when everybody was telling me, don't go into sales.
Right.
Like, nobody makes money in sales.
Right.
Or, you need to go work for the town of Ocean City. You'll make a good $45,000 a year.
Right.
And that was the last thing I wanted to be doing. I wanted to go help businesses. It was something that kind of stuck with me. And I was like,
you put a
that's
post
what I want to do.
Just the other day about haters. And I think it's such an important topic because haters, right, however you want to call it, they're your biggest believers.
Oh, for sure.
Because they're holding you to a higher standard.
Yeah, the post was never waste a hater.
Never waste a hater. That's what it was, right? Yeah, and I was like, that's a good nugget you just posted because it's so true. Like the people that hated on me the most really just believed higher for me and were like, you're not, like they wanted to talk shit on all the things that I wasn't because in their mind they must have thought I was better than that. Like, and that might be delusional, but
hey, for me it's just it's whatever. I when I posted it, and I won't dive into the story because I don't feel like I should dignify it, but I had a hater as I started approaching this podcast, and I won't dive too far down it, But the guy was taking pictures of the website, of my website, and trying to take credit for it, which I thought was because I built it.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And he was pushing my website, and I was like, holy shit. Like,
right.
I spoke to an attorney, and they were like, send it over to us. We'll take a look at it. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to keep doing it, buddy. So that's when, in my head, I was like, you never waste a hater. Let them keep
I like to think that person is actually looking out for you. They must think that you're off course or something, right? So that they see you a certain way and go, oh, you're off course, or you're detoured in your life somehow. Yeah. Let me help you, because you've gone off the rocker. You're starting your own business, or you've invested this money, or whatever it may be. So sometimes there's great wisdom in the people that are hardest on us, and often the haters are the closest people to us. Right?
Yeah. I think when it comes from your friends, family, neighbors, I think they do it from what they believe is a position of love. Right. They feel like we all have it in us when we try to go into a new venture. Even this, starting a podcast.
Right. It's thing.
There's some anxiety that you deal with going into something like this, and you'll internally question yourself.
Right.
Throughout my career, that would come from friends, family, neighbors. Are you sure that's what you want to be doing, and so on and so forth. It wasn't until about 4 or 5 years into my career that they started realizing, oh, okay, now I get it.
Right.
Like, I get why, you went the path that you did, and now, like, there's no looking back at this point.
Right. There's a tipping point where...
For sure.
Yeah.
When you have, and now I'm 10 years in doing marketing.
Right.
And I've enjoyed almost every client that I've worked with. There's a handful here and there where, what I found is the companies that want to invest the least tend to be the hardest people to please, which is very interesting.
You go where you're not needed.
Yeah, some of the best clients that I've had, and I've got clients that I've been working with for 8-9 years. They're usually the more prominent in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. They're individuals that, you said the word humble earlier. Some of the best business owners that I've worked with are the ones that they know that they don't know.
Right.
They know that marketing is not their skill set. Yep. For one individual that I look up to, he became not just a client, but a friend and somebody that I really admire. Is a gentleman named Tim. He owned a very prominent HVAC company, owned multiple companies.
Cool.
And he would embrace the fact that I would come in and know the marketing. Like, he didn't pretend to know things that he didn't know. He would challenge things. He would ask questions, which is always valid. But he never tried to stand in a position of, I'm the big guy and I know more than you. He would actually, throughout his entire organization, that's how I saw him interact and operate with employees. He would empower them.
I think that's the same principle in building a business, building a team, as well as building just a squad of great vendors, as well. But I got to finish with the story before you close out, because you shared a story with me about me a few years ago that I didn't know, because you had never shared it before, and it was incredibly humbling. And I want to share it in this moment. So you and I met as we started the episode off with, it would have been 2002, right? It would have been like fall of 2002, I think. Mm-hmm. Your senior year of high school, my freshman year of high school at Stephen Decatur. And at that time...
do you hear that noise? It sounds like somebody's running a vacuum.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Ma, the meatloaf!
Ma! Never know what she's doing.
I think it's the elevator.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it might not even
or
be
a Hot Pocket's ready, because there's a ding at that. No,
right.
I don't know.
That's good. I did wonder what that was, actually. I was just ignoring it. But so you touched on a moment when I was I divorced at this point. I'm living in an apartment in Annapolis, getting MyCORE going. We had been reconnected at this point for 5-7 years. And you had shared with me and a handful of other people that you and, was it your mom or your grandmother, had delivered food?
Yeah.
Because that's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, my grandmother. So my grandmother, has done real estate for about 20 years plus in the area. I guess probably going on 30 years, really. But, that was something, I think it's kind of inspired by Tony Robbins, but he likes to do, like, the Thanksgiving dinners and all that jazz. But, yeah, it was my grandmother.
Okay, so I want to... No, this story... I mean, it's kind of a delicate story to tell for both parties. But the short version is that you had been delivering food to families in need during the holidays. You and I had met in class, right? So you knew me as a classmate. And then my understanding of the story from the way you told it that day is that as you were delivering food to one of those homes, you looked at one of the pictures in the homes and was like, "Oh, this is Nathan Bourne's house." Is that kind of how that went down?
Yeah,
because I wasn't there that day. I don't know if I was at school, my mom was home, or when.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't remember like too much of it. I just remember walking in, and as I was going up the steps carrying the food, I looked on the wall and I saw like your school picture there, and I was like, "Hey, that's the new kid. That's the one that's killing it on the basketball court during gym class."
Right, that's funny.
But yeah, and it was, I guess it was one of those stories where you don't know how to bring that up later, and it wasn't, I wasn't.
How was that turkey?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna.
You're welcome.
So, I mean, I wasn't going to bring it up in class or anything.
Right.
I grew up in, some stressful, environments, if you will, financially, if you will. Very similar to yours. I remember in the Legal Shield days, you used to say, I grew up in a big family, a lot of love, not a lot of money.
Right.
Very similar, not the big family, but,
right.
Not a ton of money, but yeah. So,
I just think that's a cool story because, I try to always remember where I come from, and I can't really quite forget it even if I tried, but there's certain environments where you can excel and some of the other challenges of your life aren't necessarily fully factored in. So like entering school for me, that was a safe place where I could excel academically, I could excel athletically, and kind of it was left at the door, right? There were other challenges getting into the school, like who was going to pick me up or, how it was all going to work out. But
yeah.
I really appreciate that because you never shared it with me, and it's kind of hard to even articulate, like to put into words, but it's cool because it's important to me, I guess, is what I'm saying, that you firsthand really know that part of me, because I feel over the years that I've been able to have influence with you, and we've been able to learn from one another, and that somehow never, like, that wasn't used against that. If anything, maybe for it. So it was just, I don't know, it's kind of hard to put into words, but I just think it says a lot about you, man, and it's really cool that you never shared that story, and then I'm like, oh, damn, like, that was a decade ago at that time, which is now like 2 decades ago, so it's pretty neat, man. So
for sure.
I'm saying all that to say, just to finish the thought, is that I think I sensed in you what you sense in me, sensed and sense, which is that we're going places, right? And people want to be part of that. Yeah. So it's not whether I grew up poor or I just was getting off the ground with my little Legal Shield business or my little clothing thing or, even MyCORE, it's still early stage. None of that is what draws people to people. What draws people to people is people.
Yeah.
And the vision and mission of what's going forward from there, but also factoring in where they've been and where they are. So I think that's just a little nugget and real-time story of our history. So
yeah, for sure.
This has been cool, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the best place to probably close out the episode. Again, Nathan, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're in the process of moving, so you head out tomorrow, heading down to Florida, and I wish you the best as you get down there. Hopefully I will be following suit in the near future. As you know, that's definitely a place that I would like to be. But, congrats on the move, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, brother.
Cool.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Lavahot Podcast with Joseph Connell Jr. Do you want to level up your business in 2022? Then visit us at golavahot.com for a free marketing analysis.